Dab consistencies. Where do I start? Have you ever gotten two different dabs that were the same consistency, but they were completely different? One's way saucier, one's way firmer than the other. Have you ever gotten two things that were labeled shatter, but one of them is absolutely glass and the other one kind of bends a little bit, maybe a little pull and snap where you can stretch a little piece away and then it snaps off? Dab consistencies are really weird. There are no official terms or official uses for dab consistencies. However, some of them do carry over and are commonly used. But when you talk about legal markets from different state to state and what your plug might call everything and what you personally call everything, dab consistencies are always a little bit tricky. This is something that I think about a lot because I buy a lot of different concentrates. I get different consistencies, and the consistencies are inconsistent with themselves. Not all butters are the same consistency. Not all shatters are the same consistency. There's varying levels of things, and it can get confusing. Some things have pet names, like you can call every concentrate wax, right? I do it. I call everything wax. Yeah, I got the wax and I got flour. You know what I mean? It's a category, but in some places, wax is one of their consistencies. It's usually right between what most people would consider butter or crumble. But for some people, wax just refers to any cured concentrate. So none of the live extracts, but all of the cured concentrates are wax, and all of the live concentrates are resins. That's sort of how I look at it, but I'll still call live resins wax sometimes. It's just a pet name or a general name, like weed for all flour. It's not really a weed, but it's weed. Well, this is wild to me because in some instances, they try to use the names of consistencies to just sell you on stuff. But do you remember when diamonds came out? Everybody wanted to have diamonds because obviously that's a cool consistency and diamonds are extravagant, blah, 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 however you want to look at it. But then upon going out and buying diamonds, sometimes you'd get tiny little sugar wax, but they would be like, oh, they're micro diamonds. Sometimes you get big old chunks of THCA crystals. I'm like, all right, I got some nice diamonds. I got some nice sauce. It's especially tricky for me now when I live in Florida that I can't see the wax before I buy it. In some states, in some dispensaries, you can get a look at the wax, so you can kind of tell the consistency. Sometimes you go to a dispensary, they show you 10 different butters. Some of them are really dry. Some of them look really creamy. And I personally want the creamier ones. They're a little easier to manage and they're usually more flavorful in my experience. I like stuff that's a little bit saucier, but not too saucy. If it's just dripping off my damn tool, I don't like it. It's harder for me to get a cold start ready and I got to worry about wiping everything off the tool. For me, I would say some of my favorite consistencies are like live batters, live butter. In Colorado, I swear every live butter was called batter, spelled with two T's or two D's as a reference to like cake batter or something. But here in Florida and in other states I see they call it live butter, which it's the same thing. In some cases, they're not really doing anything different. Some processes might use different methods, but the end consistency is about the same. I find it funny, sometimes I buy live resin here. It's called live resin, which to me, live resin doesn't really describe a consistency. It just describes a live extract, something where you froze it and you extracted the cannabis oil within like a day or so of you harvesting it. So I think live resin is a category of concentrates versus like cured resin. You're either getting a live or a cured resin. I don't think live resin is technically a consistency because there's no one the way it looks. So when I get live resin here, sometimes it's buttery, sometimes it's sugar, sometimes it's literal sugar wax, but then they'll sell right next to it live sugar that looks the same. I've even got live butters here that were a little bit drier, not as saucy, and they sugar up and it looks just like the sugar wax. I've heard so many names for consistencies. Some names come and go. Some names get used across different types of concentrates. Some names are temporary. I used to get honeycomb wax a lot. It was like BHO that they would whip into butter and they would use this special type of vacuum purging on it that would create little holes in it, little pockets in it that would make it look like honeycomb. And it was really just crumble, but because of the way it looked at the end, they're calling it honeycomb. So I do get asked about consistencies a lot on my Twitch stream, which you should follow me on Twitch. We do smoke sessions there almost every night after 9 p.m. on Eastern. But when people ask me about consistencies or start talking about them, it always puts me in this state where I'm like, are we talking about the same thing? because there's 100 different kinds of shatter. Shatter alone is a consistency, but there's 100 different levels within there. You know what I mean? I'd actually love to hear other people's opinions on this. Are you ever just surprised when you open your container like, that's not butter, that's not crumble, that's not shatter? Or are you somehow the one person that gets literally the same consistency every time you buy it? I don't know. And think about rosin. Rosin is just a different type of extraction method. They're not using solvents like BHO or ethanol extracts. They're using heat and pressure, but most things, no matter what the consistency, are just called rosin or live rosin, flour rosin, hash rosin, even if they're different levels of consistencies. Sometimes I'll get something drier or crumblier. Sometimes I'll get something saucier, goopier, but it's just called live rosin. They don't even list a consistency on there. Hopefully when we push further into legalization, we come up with more general terms. I think categorical terms and then descriptive terms are going to help. You break all your waxes, all your concentrates down into different categories, and then you have as descriptive as you can something that would tell you about the consistency. But one issue is sometimes you make a whole batch of something and the consistency is a little bit different throughout the batch. Sometimes you do several runs of the same plant and the first batches came out a little bit different than the 7th or the 8th batch. So you've got sort of different consistencies, but you're supposed to label it all the same. Anyway, I feel like I ranted too long in this video. I'm going to do a tier list on consistencies soon. I just wanted to get this video out of the way, kind of breaking down my overall thoughts on consistencies and just kind of let people know that we might not always be talking about the same thing, even though we're using the same words. I'm getting high to celebrate 4 years of streaming on Twitch tonight. It's April 24th, so join me on Twitch for a smoke sesh. And if you want to hear about my first time buying weed in Colorado, you should check out this story. I went to the store and I bought weed.